In the year 1909, the city of Belfast in Northern Ireland was full of energy. People were excited. Something big was happening. A ship was being built. But it was not just any ship. It was the biggest and most beautiful ship the world had ever seen. Its name was Titanic. The Titanic was built in a shipyard called Harland and Wolff. Every day, thousands of workers came to build it. Some were engineers, some were carpenters, others were welders and laborers. They worked with metal and wood. They used heavy tools and big machines. The work was hard, the days were long, but the workers were proud. They were building a ship that would make history. One of the young workers was William. He was a carpenter. He loved his job and worked carefully. He wanted everything to be perfect. Sometimes, when he looked at the giant ship, he felt proud. But other times he felt something strange. He did not say it out loud, but he sometimes wondered if the ship was too big. Was it too heavy? Was it too proud? William's friend, Thomas, was also working on the Titanic. Thomas believed in the ship. He said, "This ship is strong. This ship is safe. Nothing can sink her." Thomas laughed often and liked to joke. He had a big smile and a hopeful heart. William smiled back, but in his heart he was not sure. The Titanic was very special. It was longer than any other ship, about 269 meters. It could carry more than 2,000 passengers. People called it unsinkable. The builders and designers believed it was the future of travel. Inside, the ship was like a floating palace. The first-class rooms had golden lights, soft carpets, and big mirrors. Some rooms had private decks and marble bathtubs. Third-class rooms were much smaller. They had bunk beds and shared bathrooms. But for many passengers, it was still the nicest place they had ever stayed. Most of the third-class passengers were immigrants. They were leaving their countries to find a new life in America. They were full of hope. As the ship grew taller and longer, people came to see it. They stood outside the shipyard and watched. Children waved. Some people took photographs. The ship was big, shiny, and beautiful. People called it the Ship of Dreams. When the workers finished building the hull, there was a celebration. The men were tired but happy. They shared tea and sandwiches. Some talked about the future. Others just sat and looked at the ship. It was a moment of pride. William looked up at the giant ship and whispered, "I helped build that." By 1912, the Titanic was complete. The ship had 4 tall funnels. It had everything a person could want. A swimming pool, a gym, a reading room, and fine dining rooms. The ship was ready for its first journey. People all over the world were talking about it. Newspapers wrote stories. They said the Titanic was the safest ship ever made. Captain Edward Smith was chosen to lead the Titanic on its first voyage. He was a quiet and respected man. He had been at sea for many years. This would be his final trip before retirement. When he saw the ship, he smiled. "She is ready," he said. "She is perfect." In another part of Europe, a young woman named Anna held a ticket in her hand. She stood at a train station with her little brother, Peter. They were going to America. Peter was only 7 years old. He looked up at his sister and said, "Will we have a house with a garden?" Anna smiled. "Maybe," she said, "but for sure we will have a better life." The Titanic was not just a ship. It was a dream made of steel and wood, a dream made by hands and hearts. For the rich, it was luxury. For the poor, it was hope. For the workers, it was pride. For the world, it was a miracle. When the Titanic left the shipyard and traveled to the port of Southampton, many people waved goodbye. Some cheered, some cried, some stood quietly and watched. The ship was more than metal. It was a symbol of what humans could do when they believed in something great. The Titanic was ready to begin her journey, and so were the people who would travel with her. On the morning of April 10th, 1912, the Titanic stood at the dock in Southampton. The sun was shining. The sky was clear. People came from many places to see the great ship. It was tall, wide, and beautiful. It looked like a city floating on the water. Passengers began to board. Some wore fine clothes. Others had only a few bags. There were rich families and working-class people. They all had one thing in common. They were starting a new journey. Anna and her little brother Peter walked slowly up the gangway. It was Peter's first time seeing the sea. His eyes were full of wonder. "This ship is huge," he said. Anna smiled and held his hand. "It's our new beginning," she said. Far from them, in first class, Lady Margaret and her husband arrived. She wore a beautiful hat and a long coat. Her husband helped her step onto the ship. Even though she was rich, Lady Margaret was kind. When she saw Peter sitting quietly near the railing, she bent down and gave him a small candy. "A sweet for the brave traveler," she said with a smile. Anna thanked her softly. Life on the ship was full of excitement. In first class, there were large rooms with soft chairs, shiny floors, and big windows. People read books, drank tea, and talked about their plans in America. The food was rich and delicious. There was music in the evenings. Some people danced, while others played cards. In third class, things were simpler, but people were still happy. Families shared meals at long tables. Children played in the halls. People told stories from their home countries. There was laughter and singing. It felt warm and alive. One evening, a young man named John came to the third-class area. He had a violin in his hand. He played music for the children, and they clapped and danced. Peter loved it. Anna smiled at John. "Thank you for making him happy," she said. John nodded. "Music is for everyone," he said. That night, John and Anna sat and talked. They spoke about their dreams. Anna wanted a small house and a job in a bakery. John wanted to open a music shop and teach children how to play the violin. They both hoped for a peaceful life in America. Anna missed her mother. She wrote a letter and said she would send it from New York. "I hope you'll be proud of us," she wrote. As the Titanic moved across the ocean, the weather stayed calm. The water was smooth, and the sky was full of stars. But not everyone felt safe. In the wireless room, a man named Jack Phillips was very busy. He sent messages for first-class passengers. Sometimes he got warnings from other ships. One message said, "There is ice ahead, be careful." Jack read it but did not send it to the captain. He thought it could wait. On the deck, Captain Smith stood alone. The wind was cold, and the sea was dark. He was a quiet man, and he felt the weight of the journey. He wanted everything to go well. He looked at the stars and the empty horizon. Lady Margaret sat with her husband under a blanket. The air was cold, but she felt peaceful. She looked at the ocean and whispered, "Do you believe in fate?" Her husband smiled. "I believe in this ship," he said. In third class, Peter was counting the lifeboats. "There are so many," he said. "Enough for everyone, right?" Anna looked at him. She paused. "Yes, Peter," she said. "Enough for everyone." But deep inside, she did not feel sure. The Titanic was full of light and life. It moved fast across the Atlantic. People dreamed of their new homes, new jobs, and better lives. Friendships were growing. Hopes were rising. But far ahead, the sea was hiding something cold and silent. and no one could see it yet. The night of April 14th, 1912 was cold and very quiet. The sky was full of stars and the sea looked calm and smooth. The Titanic moved through the water, fast and strong. Many passengers were sleeping. Some were still awake, enjoying the peaceful night. No one knew that danger was close. Up high in the crow's nest, two lookouts stood in the cold wind. One of them, Frederick Fleet, looked ahead and saw something big and white. It was hard to see in the dark. He rang the warning bell 3 times and picked up the phone. "Iceberg right ahead," he shouted. On the bridge, Officer Murdoch quickly gave orders. The wheel turned hard. The engines stopped. But the Titanic was too big and too fast. It could not turn in time. At 11:40 p.m., the ship hit the iceberg. It made a loud, terrible sound. The side of the ship was torn open. Metal screamed. Some passengers woke up. Others felt the ship shake but did not understand what had happened. Anna woke up and sat up in bed. Peter looked at her with sleepy eyes. "What was that noise?" he asked. Anna quickly helped him put on his coat. "We need to go outside," she said. In first class, Lady Margaret held her husband's hand. "Is it serious?" she asked. "Maybe it's nothing," he replied, but he did not sound sure. Below the ship, water rushed in quickly. The lower rooms began to flood. Thomas, the stoker, saw the water coming. "We have to get out," he shouted to the others. "She's flooding fast." Captain Smith came to the bridge. The chief engineer told him the bad news. 5 sections of the ship were flooding. The Titanic could only stay afloat if 4 or fewer were damaged. The captain stayed calm, but his face turned pale. "Prepare the lifeboats," he said. "Send a distress signal." In the wireless room, Jack Phillips began to send the SOS. "We are sinking. Please help," he typed again and again. Outside, the crew told passengers to wear life jackets and go to the lifeboats. "Women and children first!" they shouted. Anna held Peter's hand as they walked through the crowd. The ship was still mostly calm. Many people thought it was just a safety check. At one lifeboat, an officer lifted Peter in. Anna bent down and kissed him. "You're going first," she said. "I will come soon." Peter reached out and cried, "Don't leave me!" Anna tried to smile. "Be brave. I promise I'll find you." In another part of the ship, John helped a mother and her baby get into a lifeboat. "Thank you," the woman said with tears. John stepped back and gave up his place. "You go," he said. "I'll wait for another boat." The ship slowly began to tilt. People started to realize the truth. The Titanic was sinking. Some began to panic. Others prayed. The musicians on board took out their instruments. They played soft music to help people stay calm. One of the songs was "Nearer, My God, to Thee." Some passengers cried while listening. Others stood quietly, holding hands. Later that night, the ship broke into 2 parts. The sound was loud and terrifying. The front half of the ship sank quickly. The back half stood up high in the water, then slowly fell into the sea. People screamed. Some jumped into the freezing water. Others held on to the railings until the last moment. Anna was still on the deck. A man helped her get into a small, collapsible lifeboat. It was Thomas, the stoker. "Hold on tight," he told her. She sat in the boat, shaking, her eyes looking for Peter. In the water, John found a piece of wood. He held it tightly with one arm. In the other arm, he held a baby he had found floating alone. The water was like ice, but he did not let go. Early in the morning, a light appeared in the distance. It was the ship Carpathia. The passengers in the lifeboats waved and shouted. Help had finally come. Anna's boat reached the Carpathia. She looked around, and then she saw Peter. They ran to each other and hugged tightly. "I missed you," he said. "I knew you would come." John was pulled from the sea. He was freezing, but he was alive. He gave the baby to a nurse. "She's safe now," he said softly. Lady Margaret sat quietly on the rescue ship. Her husband was gone. She held her little dog and stared at the sea. Many people were missing, but she survived. Later, Peter asked, "Why were so many people brave?" Anna looked at him and said, "Because love is stronger than fear." The Titanic was gone, but the people who lived through that night would never forget it. It was a night of fear, but also a night of love, courage, and hope. The story of the Titanic is a story of dreams, hope, fear, and great courage. We followed the journey of Anna, a kind young woman who only wanted a better life for her and her little brother Peter. We saw how she protected him and how strong she stayed, even when she was afraid. Peter, though small, showed big bravery. He believed in his sister and never gave up hope. We met John, the young man with the violin. He used music to bring smiles to others. Even in a terrible moment, he gave his lifeboat seat to help a mother and her baby. Later, he saved another baby in the cold ocean. His actions remind us that even one person can make a big difference. We also remember Lady Margaret, a rich woman with a kind heart. She lost her husband but chose to help others stay calm. Thomas, the strong stoker, worked hard below deck and later helped Anna survive. Captain Smith and the ship's crew showed calm leadership and bravery until the very end. Each person had a story. Each person faced a moment of fear, but many chose love, kindness, and courage instead of panic. That is what made them heroes. The Titanic was a modern wonder, full of power and beauty. But it also showed us the limits of human pride. People thought it could never sink, but nature proved stronger. The ship went down, but the stories of the people live on. What can we learn from this story? First, we learn that life is not always safe or easy, but in the face of fear, we can choose to be kind, brave, and hopeful. We also learn that being rich or poor does not matter when it comes to courage. Every person can be a hero by helping others. You can use this lesson in your own life. Be kind to people around you. Help someone in need. Stay strong in hard times. And remember that small actions can change someone's life. Congratulations! You have just improved your English by listening to a powerful and emotional true story. You practiced reading, listening, and understanding English through real human experiences. Now let's test your listening and understanding. What did John do during the sinking of the Titanic? A. He played the piano and stayed inside. B. He helped others and saved a baby in the cold water. Comment A or B below with your answer. And if you enjoyed this story and want more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support gives us the motivation to create more inspiring and easy-to-understand English content. If you want to help us continue this free learning project, please consider donating to support the channel. In the beginning, it's really hard to keep making high-quality content without help. But we're doing this with love to help you learn English better and faster. Thank you for being with us. Keep learning, keep dreaming, and see you in the next story.